Hey everybody, welcome back with us, Warhammer Anonymous, here at the Geekery. I just want to thank everybody for seeing this video. We are back after a little bit of hiatus from the holiday season. We had planned on a couple of videos in December, but I ended up catching the flu. Then we had some major events, and then just the holidays in general. Everybody was crazy busy, couldn't get everybody together. So we kind of took a break. By the time the season ended and the holidays were over, we all got the word, Arks of Omen, new season, new update, new points. Everything for Warhammer was coming out. So we kind of talked about it. We looked and said, if everything's going to change by the 14th of January,
right,
any content we get made and put out, it's going to be old content by the time y'all are watching it. Because everybody's going to be excited about the new stuff, what's changing, what's going on. So we decided, we'll wait till we get our points. We'll wait till we get our books in our hands. We'll get that to you, and then we'll be back mid-January. That's the plan, and here we are mid-January. So we're super excited to be back. We're going to start loading some content. We are pretty excited about pretty much a refresh of Warhammer 40K. Warhammer was in a good spot. The armies, nobody was crazy overperforming, but there were definitely cream to the crop. There were some top win rate armies and lists. The new changes seem like they are going to fully revamp that. I think we are in testing stage, experiment stage. Everything that you want to put on the table, you should try, because who knows what's going to stick out there at this point.
I completely agree. I think we've got a brand new game that we all have to relearn how to do everything, and putting the conclusion first, we're going to have a lot of different things that work in January that from what worked in December.
We've already done some internal talking. A lot of us were playing what we would think were top-tier armies and getting it in there. Almost everybody has gone back to the drawing board after we've gotten the points, after we've gotten these updates, after the data slate. So we're excited. We're super excited because we get to stream some games with competitive lists that I don't think anybody's ever seen. It lets us paint new models. It lets us buy new stuff. So just getting stuff on the table that's not feeling like it's going to get completely run over if you wanted to test it is going to feel great. So that's going to be our Arks of Omen data sheet. So now we kind of want to talk about what has happened in the data slate, in Arks of Omen, in the Stormfield manual. So the first thing is going to be Ark of Omens has completely changed the way that you build your armies. We used to battalion patrol, double patrol, spearhead, everything that you could to squeeze as much power into your army as you could at a cost. Arks has kind of really flipped that.
Right, and now it's, do you want to take this? You can take it. It's going to up the number of CP most people can spend on things.
Yep. Less CP starved.
It's going to be, hey, do you want to go all elites? Great. Do you want to go all heavy support? Great. It's all legal. Is that necessarily going to be good? I think that's going to be, we'll find out.
It's a really solid question. I do think it's really interesting to see what's going to happen, because there's been a kind of a mixed opinion on this on the internet, and I'm kind of leaning in two different ways as well. I really like that it is going to be adding flexibility, but it's not actual full flexibility.
Right.
Because you're going to be full flexible in the list that you bring, so you're like, oh man, I want to bring 6 fast attack slots. Oh cool, I get my CP back, let's get the 6 fast attacks. You're still going to get your elite choices, your troops, all that stuff. You're actually got less limited on HQ choices, things like that. But the second part of that is some of these armies that were popping up that were real mixed. So like Imperial Knights with Abaddon. Because of the way the new allies section is working in this, that's what's getting really limited. So the way that they artificially limited it in the previous edition was, oh, you could ally, but you're going to lose all these abilities. So nobody wanted to. But then some models came out and some builds came out where you're like, I'm not getting enough from my global buff, so I will just fill up all my holes by allying in. Not that big a loss, and we're good to go. Well, the new Ark doesn't let you do that at all. There are just set things that you can ally with. You either can bring them or you can't. So even armies who could previously, like we would say GSC with its Brood Brothers, you had this nice selection of what you could bring. That selection has even gotten super tampered down of what you can actually bring as Brood Brothers.
Basically, none of the new stuff is eligible to ally with GSC.
Yeah, you can only take over camps with really old equipment.
Right.
That seems to be the system. Or like the fact that just Gene Stealer Colt can't team with Tyranids at all. or vice versa. So that is an interesting build side. The other side about it is, I think OBSEC is going to be the hidden role in Ark of Omen that people either have or do not have. And I think that's going to separate armies.
In my opinion, OBSEC is the most powerful rule in the game.
Yeah, it's how you score points.
I see a lot of theory hammer lists on the internet of people like, I'm just going to not take any troop tax anymore. And I think that's a bad idea. Because I think you will run into games where it's like, cool, I got all my killing power. Wait, I didn't score any primary points.
Yeah, I tabled my opponent, but I got 15 primary in the last turn of the game. and that's really possible to happen now. You do have people, I'm one of them, I've theory crafted some lists, 10 total OBSEC bodies on the board. Like not OBSEC units, anything like that. It's 10 infiltrators, 5 and 5. So it's really interesting to see. I think you can design lists that kill people, but even Marine players, unless they're doing the heavy infantry side, and they're bringing, and yet again, it's still going to be attacks. You're going to pay for your Warlord trait to make your infantry OBSEC, but it's only going to be in a 6-inch bubble. You're only going to have 1 or 2 of that ability at best, and that's if you pay the points for the other units. So you're still only going to be able to move your OBSEC tactically around the board as much as you want compared to Orc players who are like, I've just got OBSEC, bud.
Right.
Me, Custodes players, they just got an OBSEC buff. So Custodes were already in a pretty good spot. Mm-hmm. They were a low 50 to high 40% win rate. They just gained OBSEC back on pretty much all of their infantry. And you've got all these people talking about taking OBSEC off of their armies. So how are you going to compete with a Custodes player who's just like, I got a Terminator over there, man. That's mine.
And that Terminator's
50 points. That's it. So I think that's the coolest interaction that I think is going to be the competitive bane of Ark of Omen. You can definitely do whatever you want, but if you take every liberty to streamline your army to do as much damage as possible, I think you could get punished on primaries.
The other part of the detachment I think is really interesting is they're giving those slots specifically for the elite characters.
The elite characters, the thing they put in every book that screws up every book.
Absolutely. And so those armies like GSC, like Sisters, probably like Guard, that have
even
Marines that have those cheap elite support characters, where you were always forced to make the decision between, do I want a good elite unit or support elite unit? And you couldn't have both. Now you can. And I really like that idea.
You can fundamentally get 9 elite choices out of this, I think. Is it 3 elite character slots?
You get 3 from the compulsory, 3 from the secondary, and then 3
from the
elite
characters. Yeah, so you could really stretch it out now. I do like that. It's a lot of flexibility. If you've got models, you want them on the table, this is the season of Warhammer to get those models on the table. Like, I want 6 fast attacks. Cool. Bring your 6 fast attacks. Moving off of how you build your army, the other big thing in this edition is the data slate did come out.
Sure did.
The data slate also came with a points adjustment.
Sure did.
And boy, we were in snooze fest from the last data slate. We were super impressed. The game did not fundamentally change. There were some rules changes, and we were all like, they may as well not wasted this paper.
The October one was the soft touch you could possibly imagine, and for a lot of armies, this one is the hammer.
January's data slate and points is the life-giving or taking away blood of Warhammer 40k.
So we don't need to go into all the changes.
No, everybody's read them. You've got access to them.
But from a big thing number 1 is the top got hit really hard.
Yes.
Harlequins lost a point of invuln. Creations of Bile ability only triggers half the time. Necrons lost doing both OBSEC and the pregame move. And my dear Tyranids went up several hundred points in the field manual before you talk about Spore Mines at all. So
and lost Overrun.
And lost the Flyrants being able to do his overrun thing, so...
The main tool, the yo-yo of the army.
The most uninteractive staple of 9 months of Tyranid Codex.
And if you asked me, what was keeping them in the high win rate?
Sure.
It's crazy. They hit every army who was in that 55% win rate. I would argue was a massive nerf. But my big thing is, I think it's the bottom-up side of this that is bigger. I think the armies who are at the bottom of this win rate are going to see the biggest changes from this more than the top armies seeing the big nerf. Marines got probably 200 plus points per almost any list that you could have imagined bringing. They gained about 200 points. The big one that is I think a big buff for Marines that nobody is going to argue with me over is Armor of Contempt is gone. So many armies actually got it that your doctrines were worthless.
Sure.
You would get bolters and
Accurate
AP 1, and you're like, cool, I got actual no AP versus 90% of what I'm playing against. Now, large volume AP1 fires back on the table. So that's huge sections of all of these codexes that are in these bottom section of win rates that get to be back on the table, and they're going to matter.
My Drukhari Witches all of a sudden are relevant again.
AdMech across the board have pretty much AP1. Like, that's why they were suffering so bad. Then we have to look at things like AdMech got huge points increases and rules updates. Decreases and rules updates. Marines got 200 to 300 points per army and got access to their doctrines the whole time. They Armor of Contempt was lost for all of the armies they were going against, Chaos Marines, things like that. So I think those... Oh, Imperial Guard got their new book, so we don't even want to talk about that one. So you've got these armies who were in this 30 to low 40% win rate, who are probably going to come out of this really rising above the cream. I think everybody at the top's going to come down to that win rate, and everybody at the bottom, everybody's got that army they wanted that's sitting on a shelf that you could not play. I think you can bring those guys back out. You can put them on the table. I think they've got very solid ways of getting to the top. I do have a prediction that for the next 90 days, unless something changes drastically from GW, our new Imperial Guard Overlords are going to be everywhere. That book is nasty. The internal ability of what it can do and the damage it can output, plus having bodies on the board, and all of their AP1 now matters again too.
And just the stock standard guard squad puts out a lot of damage, and you put out a lot of just bodies.
Yep. So I think
sixes to hit auto wound is pretty good.
Yeah, I think they are going to fill that slot where we all have a boogeyman to actually point at, which is nice because if it's only just one boogeyman, we can tactically decide how to fix the game. But I think for the next little bit, unless something is done, there will be one thing you're gunning for, which is Imperial Guard. But I do think everybody's army has play, unless you were, I think, the Tyranids player. I think they're going on the shelf. I'm a Tyranids guy. I've already got my army built. It is in a nice little 4x4 cube on a shelf because that's exactly where I think it goes. Sorry to say. I think this is where I'm going to bring up my biggest controversial thing. The one boogeyman that they did address in the dataslate was not addressed in the Ministorm Field Manual.
Correct.
Not just drastically, is the Demons players in general. Demons saw some points decreases, really no points increases, some subtle ones. So the armies that people weren't playing, Khorne, I don't think... Nurgle really.
Nurgle.
Nobody saw Nurgle. So Nurgle got some points decreases. That might help them out a little bit. Khorne got a few, but they're a real melee-only army, so maybe that doesn't help them enough. But the big one is the dataslate did take the Flamer away from the Flamer. Flamers are still 25 points for a T4, 3-wound body, with fly, who moves 12, who has a strength 5, -2, 6 plus 3 Flamer. That's assault. The change was they now shoot their ballistic skill. So fundamentally, it was a 33% hit to their hit rate.
See, now Kyle and I will disagree here. I think that is a big deal because it's not a 33% hit rate because now you can apply a -1 to hits. It's a 50% hit rate.
They'll advance most of the time
Most of the time they have
anyways.
to advance to get their angle.
Yep.
You can use dense. You can use -1 auras. The thing that I don't think you're considering is
You can
they
charge them.
You can charge
Yeah,
them.
that is the one thing of this that I 100% agree with. It's you don't have to turn off Overwatch.
So it's fine. They come up, they flame something, they kill it, but now you charge it back, and now they're trading the flamers instead of me having to engineer some Rube Goldberg machine.
Correct.
So that I don't just lose my charge unit against them.
The only reason I fundamentally still think demon players, you're going to come out of this okay with your 25-point flamers and keep putting them on the table is because now you're just going to change how you use them. You are going to move them up. You are going to shoot, but you're going to shoot at exactly what's in front of you, and you're going to be clearing chaff a lot more often with them. And for 150 points a unit and using them in that function, I think they're still perfectly acceptable, because if you kill all the stuff that could even possibly charge you, do you really care?
I don't think they're going to be shooting at things that we're going to charge them.
You think they're okay? Listen, so I'm intrigued. That's my one prediction. I think demon players are crying a little bit about flamers. They shouldn't be, because they know that they were wrong to begin with. But I do think your flamers are still at 25 points. That's still one of the best 25-point frames in the game. That movement with that gun with that many shots.
They're 3 wounds, right?
They're 3 wound models.
So they're still less than 10 points.
10 points per wound.
So
with still a good gun. Like, you have to imagine, it's still on average a 5 to 6 shot, strength 5, -2, 1 damage gun. That's a solid gun on a lot of. That's almost every one of them having an assault cannon.
Sure.
So they're still great models. I still think you're going to see them on the table. I just do not think they are going to be absolutely auto picking up everything they shoot at, which that's what the game didn't need. But I still think you demon players shouldn't boo-hoo about your flamers. They're fantastic. Put them on the board. Play a couple of games. I think you're going to still be very happy with how they perform. You might not be happy with how the Exalted Flamers and the Chariots perform, because they don't auto-hit either now. And that's a much bigger change on a model where you've only got like 2 of them. Mm-hmm. So when they auto-hit, you could kind of justify him, but now you're like, he's like a 70-point model with a bad flamer. So he might not be good, but the flamers themselves, I think, are going to be pretty good out of this.
I guess we will see.
We will see.
And I think that's probably the summary of all these changes. We're going to see what rises up to the top.
All right, man. We've got some great games coming up. We're going to start getting them put on the channel for you. We will see y'all shortly. Thank y'all for tuning in.